The beauty and simplicity of faith is something which just recently, last night, has amazed me. A big light bulb went off for me because something I like to do is I like to watch videos of creationists and evolutionists debating. I went to high school and university, and I ended up believing in evolution, and I was presented, a lot of facts, a lot of science that you learn in school, and it really crushed my faith. And as I've come back to Jesus Christ, I've realized that a lot of these teachings aren't based on truth. And there's a lot of scientific Christians that know a lot about history, about science, about anthropology, that debate atheists. And these atheists also know a lot about Christian arguments. They know a lot about the Bible too. So both sides have a lot of information. And the long and short of it is that Christians always argue that they don't get to present their information without being, cut off or criticized for being crazy. And atheists say that Christians, whenever we aren't able to answer a question or don't have information on a subject right away, that we always just divert to God, and that we try to take information and conform it to what the Bible says. I'm not here to argue about, well, obviously, who I believe is right, but I'm not here to, talk about that further. What I want to say is that these Christians, okay, have a lot of information. Like I mentioned, they are very, very well-educated people. And you can have all the facts in the world, you can have all the science, you can have all the proof in the world. It does not mean that you'll be able to convert more people. I'm really beginning to believe this, and it's making so much sense. You can have all the evidence, but people who just don't want to look at it will not look at it. It's painful. And I really believe that somebody can only be drawn to the Father if God opens their eyes. And the reason why this is because we're not justified by knowledge. Man isn't justified by how much he knows, because if someone were able to understand God logically, if an atheist learned, I believe that a lot of atheists are out there trying to find the truth. And some of them want to believe in God, but they can't. They just can't. And I think a lot of us that are able to are out there trying to find information. I don't need any more information, but I like to learn. Many people are out there trying to learn so that they can see the big picture of things, but it doesn't mean that they're going to submit to it. So you can go and know all the facts, all the scientific numbers and everything, and speak to atheists and try to make them understand, but it doesn't mean that you'll be able to logically convince them. And the reason for that is because we're not justified by knowledge or by works, okay? But we're justified by faith. People are brought to God because of their faith. They're woken up because of their faith. God does something to them, and their eyes, the scales are taken off their eyes, and they believe. You have rich people who are educated, who have the opportunity to go and get degrees, the opportunity to speak to other people that are educated, that know a lot of facts. You have people that are literate, clearly, and people that are illiterate. There's a lot of poor people in the world that are living under $1 a day, maybe even less. And how are they supposed to come to the gospel? A lot of them are saved. There's a lot of testimonies of people coming out from the gutter and going out and preaching the word and, you know, bringing many people to Christ. It's not by their knowledge or their education that they were saved. It was by their faith. Many of the disciples didn't know how to read or write. They were just simple people. And I think God does this to show that He's powerful and He doesn't need anybody. He doesn't need anyone. God doesn't need people with degrees. He doesn't need people that go to seminary. He doesn't need, you know, people that go and, you know, spend all this time to become a pastor. He doesn't need all these different levels of bishops and cardinals. He doesn't need none of that. It's all nonsense to Him. What He needs is faith, and He needs is a person to submit to His will. And people say, well, where's the proof that God existed? The proof was there 2,000 years ago, but people don't want to consider it. They just don't. God's already done the miracles. He came down in the flesh of a man named Jesus Christ. He died and was resurrected. The miracles have been done, and they're still going on, but people don't want to pay attention to that. So God has got nothing to prove to nobody. Absolutely nothing. He's done the miracles. Now He sits back and He says, who will listen? Who will come to me? God's a gentleman. He's got integrity. He's not a clown. Now, a lot of atheists, some atheists, I won't say a lot because I don't know that, but I do know some atheists used to be Christians that went to seminary, and they don't believe anymore. And I kind of am beginning to believe that seminary is just a faith-destroying institution that conforms men to the will of men, and which basically gives them excuses not to believe what the Bible says. They say, oh, well, you know what, this was interpreted this way, the original Greek meaning is this, all these excuses. Some people just don't want to believe. They just want to argue, and that's it. With these people, don't waste time trying to convince them or trying to, you know, come up with more evidence, because you can't convince them. They can know everything. They might want to believe in God. They might, you know, kind of see the big picture, but when they start to see it, they move back and they just, you know, present other arguments, all right? It's a matter of faith. It's a matter of courage, of just coming to God and realizing that, you know, we're not monkeys. Because the human mind is in constant rebellion against God. That's why the biggest denomination of people in the world, not a denomination, but the biggest, group that people fall under is religion. That's because many people want to have one foot in the kingdom and one foot out. All right, they want to have a ticket to heaven and a license to sin. That's why you have so many different religions, but very, very few people are willing to live holy lives and live the way that Jesus Christ called them to live. Even though the evidence is there, even though the prophecies are there, it's only those who by faith submit to God and do His will. And in order for you to come to that faith, you've got to stop rebelling. You've got to submit. You've got to, say, God, you're right. I've been wrong. And I want to walk in your light, and I want to live my life according to your will. You give up. You give up. You lose. You lose. You don't lose in the long run, but at first, initially, you lose. You're not Lord of your life anymore. And the only way to be saved is to submit to Jesus Christ and obey Him. And that's the beauty of faith. You don't need to be educated. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be powerful. It doesn't matter how good of a speaker you are. It doesn't matter how good you appear to be before men. It's all about faith. So anybody out there, if you sinned your whole life, people have called you evil. Well, you are evil. So was I. If you're educated, if you're poor, God doesn't care about any of that. What God cares is that you have the courage to accept Him and to submit to His will. That's why the gospel, salvation, is a gift for anyone who is willing to submit and not come up with all these ideas and excuses to work around submitting to God and living in holiness. May Jesus bless you.